really, and in the most vicious way in the last few weeks. And many other local government areas in the northeast are now, as we speak, under the control of Boko Haram. But the media is not allowed to report it. What Lai Mohammed has done, and he's very, very smart, brilliant guy, good friend of mine. We've been together since 1989, when we started September Club together. Good friend of mine. I'm sure you find that hard to believe. We're very good friends. We saw the other day at the TSTB launching. We're very good friends. And we will always be good friends. It's just that we disagree. I disagree with his government, the government he's serving. And he disagrees with what I believe in. But we're friends. Now, he's very good at what he does. What he does and what they do, Femi Adesina, another very nice guy, good friend of mine as well. They're very smart. What they have done is managed to intimidate the media into not speaking truth. Now, without a virile, strong, truthful media, you don't have a democracy. You have a dictatorship. And that's what we're in today. You won't get any newspaper talking about anything that is considered to be against the government in this country. I'm talking about the traditional news. You won't do it. You know why? The editor will lose his job because they'll squeeze the publisher. No. Thank God for social media. That is where the truth will come out. And that is where you will get an accurate picture of events about what's going on in this country. And that they can't control. I'm talking about Facebook, I'm talking about Twitter, I'm talking about all the wonderful online magazines and newspapers who cannot easily be intimidated by them because many of them operate from outside the country. That's where you get the truth.
All right, we'll come to the social media, but let's get back to this issue of restructuring, which you say is part of the means to get to the solution of the crisis of the issue of development and good governance and growth for the country. Beyond devolution of power, seeking to have the respective region having control of their resources, what else do you think should come up alongside?
Before we even get to that, the first thing is that a situation where a group that has been called the fourth most deadly terrorist organization in the world by an international terror index, a reputable international organization that assesses such things, the Nigerian government has described as not being terrorists, but being mere criminals. How do you reconcile that in a civilized society? A group like IPOB that has fought for the right of self-determination and has said that they want a referendum in their part of the country to determine if the people of that area want to leave Nigeria or stay in Nigeria. You label, and they've never attacked anybody, they've never killed anybody, they've never been violent, they've never done it. You describe them as terrorists. And the international community will get up and say to you, the Americans say, these people are not terrorists. The British say, these people are not terrorists. The French say, these people are not terrorists. The Turks say, these people are, everybody says these, UN says these people are not terrorists. But you say they are terrorists and you kill them. That, for me, is a major issue. And as long as you have things like that going on, what you're doing is you're planting the seeds of division of this country. Because you can't suppress the right of the people to exercise their views, freedom of speech, freedom of association. You now ban IPOB. You now ban this. You now either you've killed Nnamdi Kanu or you've carried him somewhere nobody can see him. Nobody knows where he is. You do these things and you are mocking God and you are insulting God. You marginalize the church in this country. You marginalize Christians in this country. You marginalize Southerners in this country. You marginalize Middle Belters in this country. You kill Christians. Yes, Christians are being killed in this country. Southerners are being butchered in this country. Middle Belters are being butchered in this country. If it's not Fulani husband, it's the military. This is the reality of the truth. This is what we're facing in Nigeria. And you say nobody should talk? Then you now suppress the media. Then you now label innocent people, women and children that have no guns and young men that have no guns as terrorists. And the real terrorists you say they're not terrorists. What are you talking about? We have a major problem here. These people will never allow restructuring. You know that, I know that. We've been fighting for restructuring for the last 30 years. I've been involved in it. When we were at Obasanjo, we argued for it. Various national conferences have been called. You threw the conference report into the dustbin. You said you don't understand what it means. You're not interested in restructuring. You know why? Because you don't want to let go of that goose that lays the golden egg for you. You are living off the proceeds of the oil in the Niger Delta area.
Let me get
You don't want to let go of that.
You're saying that restructuring is something that must come, and you're saying these people will not allow for restructuring.
Sure.
So how do we get out of this?
There's nothing to get out of.
So Nigeria is going to remain. It
will not remain like this. What is going to happen is the agitation for separation will become more and more pronounced over the years until this country eventually breaks. And those of us that love this country are saying, look, don't let it get to that. Be flexible. Negotiate. Obasanjo advised this government, advised President Buhari to go and negotiate with Nnamdi Kanu. And he said even he would be delighted to do that. No, you don't do that. You try and kill him instead. And you insult Obasanjo for offering that advice.
No, to be an allegation to say they tried to kill him because there is no such evidence at the moment.
Let me tell you the evidence, and I repeat it. The military and the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian military is President Buhari. I've been in government, on various. I was minister 10 years ago. So any ministers talking, I look at them. They're very junior to me. I was minister over 10 years ago. Over 2 ministries, not one. And I was presidential spokesman for 3 years. I know how government works. No military formation can move in this country without the permission of the commander-in-chief. Soldiers went to this young man's house. He called me when soldiers were in his house. They stormed his house. His lawyer gave me a clear account only a few days ago. And I'm supposed to sit here and say somebody is saying that we shouldn't make allegations. People died. People died there. People's wives, people's children, people's mothers, people's fathers. How have we become so insensitive in this country? Catalan, they're trying to get their own country out of Spain. The people of Catalan in Spain. The other day, the Spanish police were beating them and stopping them from conducting their own referendum. The whole of Europe and the world was outraged. The Spanish government had to apologize. Here, you send soldiers to his house. You kill the dogs. You kill the cook. You kill the houseboys. You kill the guests. You kill the people that you spray the whole house with bullets. You burn the cars, and you tell me it wasn't an attempt to kill this person? For goodness sake. It could be you or me tomorrow, God forbid. For goodness sake. Are we such cowards? Wole Soyinka said the man died in him that remains silent in the face of tyranny. The man cannot die in me. Shakespeare said that cowards die 1,000 times. The valiant die but once. What are we scared of? Is it death? Is it persecution? What haven't we seen? Is it intimidation? Are they threats? Listen, the love of God is with us.
No, let's come to democracy.
So let's be very clear about this. Let's say it as it is. I repeat, there was an attempt to kill this man. And he's now nowhere to be found. His people are being crushed. Those that are supposed to be leaders in the East have betrayed him and sold him down the river. And I'm amazed at the fact, of course they have. And I'm amazed and I'm very ashamed of them. Because for goodness sake, this man or this young man was yours. And you don't do that. And I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a Yoruba man. You know why? You know why I say so?
No, tell me.
OPC, Afenifere, Fayose, all the Yoruba leaders, even the Yoruba APC leaders, interestingly, and myself and so many others, and most importantly, the Ooni of Ife, have come out and said, IPOB is not a terrorist organization, and they're not happy with the way the federal government is handling this matter. These are not Igbos, these are Yoruba leaders. And we say that because we're mindful of the fact that if it can be happening to the Igbos today, they can turn their guns on us tomorrow. That is what an educated, insightful, cerebral, far-thinking leadership and people will do. And I'm proud to be a Yoruba. That the most important and the paramount traditional ruler of the Southwest, the Ooni of Ife, and I happen to be from Ife, can go to the East, which he did just yesterday and the day before. He did it twice. Condemn the fact that IPOB had been declared a terrorist organization, say they're not a terrorist organization, and express his concerns about what the Pythons were doing in the East. I'm very proud of that. OPC said the same thing. Afenifere said the same thing. Fayose, my friend and brother, the governor of Ekiti, said the same thing. I have said it. And like I said, we had a summit the other day, Yoruba Summit, in which it was accepted and adopted. 90% of the leaders of the Yoruba across party lines have said clearly and categorically that the only way forward is to restructure this country before it explodes and before we end up killing one another. Nobody wants violence. Nobody wants anybody to die. Even division is not something that we see as a first option. Nobody wants that. Those that want it, you can understand why, because they're frustrated and they understand that there is a problem and they're saying it can't be solved. We're saying we can still solve this problem. Let's sit down, let's talk, let's negotiate, let's devolve power from the center, and let's act like human beings and not sit by as people are being butchered morning, day and night, and as $26 billion, not naira, dollars, goes missing simply because you have a situation where a northerner wants to control the purse strings of NNPC. The president is a northerner, the GMD of NNPC is a northerner. They now push out the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and Energy, and he can't even see the president in this day and age because he's not one of them.
But he just met with the president.
He did after the letter was leaked. Before then, he said he has not been able to see the president. Is that normal? And Nigerians, and we talk about that, you say it's people say, oh, it's hate speech.
So let's touch on that. The former cabinet minister, who has been in charge of two ministries, will you condone such action?
If I were the minister, I would have resigned. No DG of mine, because the GMD of NNPC is merely he's a parastatal chief under his ministry. No, go and ask how I handled my ministries. All my DGs were very good, very loyal, very committed, and I gave them a certain level of autonomy. But at the end of the day, the buck stopped with me. When they got it right, I got the credit. We shared it, but I got part of the credit. When they got it wrong, I had to take responsibility for it. No DG under my ministry can say he won't report to me.
So if you have to counsel ministers at the moment in this government who have similar issues, though some of them have not really fully come about it, there are indications that some ministers are having these kind of challenges with their subordinates. If you were to counsel them, what would be your counsel?
Well, as I said, if it had been me in his situation, I would have resigned. He would have either had to line up and take directives from me, or I would have left cabinet. And I would have gone to my principal and said, the president said, look, I can't go on like this. And if he refused to see me, I would have written a letter of resignation and sent it to him and resigned. It's as simple as that. Okay. But he's a very courageous man, by the way. The fact that he can come out and write that, because you see, the implications of that are that this sort of thing is what has been going on. And there are also other implications that, look, like many have said, and I wrote an article about it. The article was titled, I think it was something about what was it? I can't remember the title of the article, but it was in my last column, in which I expressed my views concerning what Kachiku was going through, and it was a very interesting title. I think a word for Kachiku and the house niggers or something like that. But if you Google it, you'll be able to read it. And it's far more than just corruption. It speaks to the whole issue of hegemony, that some people believe they must control the purse strings. Some people believe they're above the law. They act with impunity, label others as being corrupt, prosecute others, arrest their families, humiliate them. Meanwhile, you are doing 100 times worse than anybody has ever done in the history of Nigeria. In the history of Nigeria, nobody has ever accused anybody else of, spending 26 billion US dollars. I mean, that's almost as much as the national debt in the space of 3 or 4 months without going through due process. It's never happened before. A government official under this government has said it has happened. And the Nigerian public is aware. There ought to be outrage in this country about this. Not only should the GMD be sacked and investigated and prosecuted, not only that, the minister himself has to be asked questions about why he did not stop this. And the president himself, who is the Minister of Oil and Petroleum Resources, he himself has to be asked questions. Because in the letter, what the minister said was that according to the GMD, the Minister of Oil, who is Buhari himself, approved all these things. How he could have approved it all the way from wherever he was at the time, because he was ill most of the time, I don't know. But that's the defense. And if he approved that without going through due process, which is the law, it raises a lot of questions. If it had been a PDP person who was accused of doing this 5, 10, even 10 years ago, they would have picked him up. They would have raided his house, picked him up, picked up his whole family, messed him up by now. tortured him, kept him in EFCC custody for almost 4 months,
Now let's
and then paraded him before the courts.
Now let's explore.
Why can't they do the same for their own?
Now let's explore.
And it doesn't stop there. You look at what happened with the former secretary to the federal government, Lawal. You look at what happened to the DG of NIA, that whole issue of Osborne Gate and so on and so forth, which we raised questions about. The whole thing has been buried. It doesn't stop there. Look, there are so many things these people are doing, but nobody is prepared to talk about it. Everybody is intimidated and scared. Everybody says, oh, don't say this, because if you say it, you might be in trouble and they won't like you. Well, we're not all like that. And let me tell you something, it's only a question of time before they will pay for the atrocities they have committed against the Nigerian people and the wickedness they have visited upon innocent men and women in this country. It's only a question of time, because God is alive.